This is the second attempt with Facebook Live. Interview people at 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to have True Thomas coming in. This is Kevin Cordi. I'm that crazy practitioner of play. And if you haven't heard, we are going to have debut. And we're going to invite you at 1:30 to hear True Thomas, the professional storyteller. And I'm just testing Facebook Live because normally I record these, but I'd like to hear from you. So if you can see or hear this, just put it in the comments that you're listening, and we'll highlight that comment, and I'll know the audience is there. We so appreciate all the stuff that you're doing, and we'll just tell you a little bit about Debut. Debut is where we're going to feature 3 professional storytellers on March 27th, Sunday at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, March 27th. It's $12 in general admission, but we don't want that to preclude you. So if you can only donate so much, that's fine. It goes to the tellers, and we so appreciate so much that you're part of that community. If you're out there, give me a holler, put it in the comments. Rachel, I so appreciate that you can hear and that this is working. And thank you. A little strong on the sound, so I'll try to bring that down when I figure it out. Thank you so much. So we are testing a little bit, and I'm looking at the microphone right now, so I'm going to bring that down a little bit. Rach, hopefully that helps. So we have some amazing storytellers. We have Sheila Arnold, who we never know what Sheila's going to tell. We got True Thomas, and True Thomas has a lot of secrets in his storytelling. He actually does a thing called guerrilla storytelling. And Kristen Ward was highly recommended to me by another storyteller, and I can't wait to hear some of the work that she's done. I've talked to her. We're going to interview all 3. At 1:30, we're going to interview True Thomas. And on Sunday at 4:30 Eastern Standard Time, Kristen and Sheila, we're going to interview at 8 o'clock that night. So we're going to try Facebook Live and see how it works. So let me know if the sound's working. I wanted to take a little time and just test Facebook Live, tell you a little bit about it, and make sure that you know all about Debut. But while I'm doing this, I just want to test a few more things. Thank you. A little distorted feedback, so maybe I'll move it a little closer and see what happens. Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate that. I'm also going to test, and while I have your attention, I'm just going to talk about some work in storytelling that is well worth looking in. If you haven't seen Lisa Cron's Wired for Story, you need to. She talks about the whole idea that we are indeed wired for story. And her newest book is Story or Die. And, I'm just doing this because we're testing Facebook Live, but the educator in me wanted to say a little bit about some of the resources that you could build up and really help your own storytelling ability, whether you're an educator, you're a teacher, you're a director, you're a producer, or you're a family member that just really wants to move inside the world of story. Story and Die doesn't go into the real hard tack psychological brain research that's being done, but it tells how that works, that we are wired for story. And the one thing that it does is it gives you a systematic way of looking at how story making is part of the process of writing and for telling. Another book I want to share with you is written by Annette Simmons, who wrote The Story Factor, and Whoever Tells the Best Story Wins. She has a new book, and I just bought this, Drinking from a Different Well, How Women's Stories Change, What Power Means in Action, Annette Simmons. I've only read the first couple pages, but it only wants me to read more. So if you're out there, let me know. Let me know how the sound is going, see where things are going. One of the things that we talked about in the research of story, my friend, oceanographer, researcher, turned professional storyteller, West Point graduate, Kendall Haven, wrote Story Smart. And as you can see, I've got it definitely annotated here. Using the science of story to persuade, influence, and inspire and teach. He looked at over 300 quantitative and qualitative studies on the nature of story, and it's well worth reading. Right now, we need to have more concrete reasons why we're using story. We know it works. One of the most impassioned books I've read recently is 365 Alive by Mary Alice Arthur. And if you haven't seen her website, you need to. Find your voice, claim your story, live your brilliant life. She really tells you how every day you can be immersed in story. And she also borrows from the language of many story practitioners because they're included in the book. It is a highly passionate invitation to use story every day, daily. This crazy guy also wrote a book, edited a book recently called Tomorrow's Storytellers Today. And yes, I edited it, but more importantly, the people really speak to the next direction of storytelling. If you're listening, let me know. And Rachel, I agree. We need these books. We definitely need these books. There's no question. And Tomorrow's Storytellers Today is a new generation of storytellers. We have everyone from Holly Robinson, who talks about family, and Sadari talks about family. Amanda will talk about how her generation grew up in story. The whole reason that I edited this book is I wanted to know a little bit more of the directions that story is going, and the only way you can do is you ask people to comment and to write on that. We have Changa, who speaks about social media, which I'm using, and we have Katie Knutson and Michael McCarty talks. Michael McCarty talks about Katie talks about the competitiveness of storytelling, and it is there. It's not the only reason to do storytelling. And Michael McCarty and Daniel Henson. Daniel Henson is currently in a correctional institution, and he started a storytelling club that Michael used to run. There is so much that needs to be done. Debut, we are really big on play. And I've written a book on play called Playing with Stories, Story Crafting for Storytellers, Writers, and Other Imaginative Thinkers. Oh, and Rachel just shared that Holly will do the keynote. Let's see if I can get that on there. I'm still learning this equipment. Will keynote on May 9th with her summit and festival, Story Crossroads. Definitely think about that. Story Crossroads is a place to be. If you want to know where story is going, Rachel Hedman is at the forefront of looking and examining the many different ways that stories work with youth and so much more. We put out a salute to Rachel's work and to Holly's work. And we've known each other for a long time, and we just encourage all the support. And just think about the idea of crossroads where stories meet. And that's part of the reason why Tomorrow's Storytellers Today was created. And we hope that you can get involved with that. Again, this is me just planned for the big show. And the big show is going to happen at 1:30 when we talk to True Thomas, a.k.a. Robert Sutter, is in California, and literally he has some secrets in storytelling. He is a person that knows how to gather storytellers, and he does it in a way that I haven't seen many storytellers at all. It's going to happen right here on Debut on March 27th. If you're listening, let us know. If you're listening, tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. We're eventually going to give you a schedule when you can hear this. And I'm so glad that Rachel's listening, and I agree. We have lots of good memories because the best work is when it's done in a concerted way. And Rachel's been at the forefront of that. And the only way to really be involved in storytelling is to be involved in the practices of storytellers, story listeners, and just as my wife, who's an improv comedian, says, just say yes. Say yes, and how can I build from that? Not, no, that's not the way story goes, or that's not the way I learn. That was the one outcome of many outcomes that came out of Tomorrow's Storytellers Today, is that we got to listen a little differently sometimes on how story is represented. That story defines what it needs. And Jackie Torrance once said to me that there's one thing that she wants to know, not a list of stories. And for those who didn't know Jackie, she was an amazing African-American teller who knew a number of stories. And that was not how many stories do you know, but do you have the story that this person needs right now at this time? Do you have this story that this person needs right now at this time? I think that should guide us as we think about how story is in business, how story is in practice, and how story really encompasses our lives. In a short bit of time, I've tried to show you that True Thomas is going to be coming on at 1:30, and we're going to have candid interviews about the practice and about play and about how we work as storytellers and story listeners and the diversity. I've tried to share with you some rich resources, whether it was my own playing with stories to Mary Alice Arthur's 365 Alive. The one thing that I've realized that story is a craft, a science. It requires you to really think about story as a practice, as a science, as an art. Sure, you can learn a couple stories and you can go and you can tell them, but really where it really gets to the beauty is when you start studying them, when you start asking questions. And as one person said to me, a well-known famous storyteller said, Kevin, I listen to 1,000 stories so that I can tell just a few to make the connections. It isn't the listening. That's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. And as another friend of mine, Michael Perry, says, that when we're born, the first thing that we get is sound, and the last thing that leaves is sound. That's how important it is, that our listening strength builds better telling strength. It is a rich, rich, rich reward to talk with you and experiment, and I want to thank everyone who's been listening. I hope that you've got a little bit from the resources and that you're just jazzed for 1:30, where we talk to True Thomas, because as Rachel will say, True Thomas is awesome, and I'm so glad that he's coming on Debut. And Debut is stronger when you're on Debut. Debut is a fusion of storytelling and play, looking at the story making process and the storytelling process and putting it together so that we understand. Too often storytellers work alone. They don't have to. We need to have more opportunities where they talk about craft and they talk about what they do, and you can do that on Debut. So this is my experiment with Facebook Live. An extreme shout out to Rachel Hedman, who I know is listening. I also see that Michael Lockett is listening, and he will soon be on Debut. We don't announce, but I figure this is the first Facebook Live. I better tell you, stay tuned, because Michael's coming to us too. And I see people are responding, and we're here live. And Rupa, rumor has it she may be coming to join our group on Debut, which leads me to say, if you're a storyteller and you want to play with a brand new story, I should tell more about what Debut is. 3 professional storytellers, and we've had a wide range, from the ever-talented Ed Stivender, Andy Irwin Offit, or Paul Strickland, or Laura Packer, or whoever. They tell a brand new story, never told before. And then they work with that crazy practitioner of play for about 20 minutes on the story direction. And then in addition to that, the people who are watching will also give comments. I remember a national stage teller about a year ago said, he was started right on Debut, and he now is on the stage saying, I learned this next direction from Debut. Storytelling, when it's done at its best, is a co-creative art. It is a co-creative practice that we need to hold on to. The listener is creating with the teller, As J. O'Callahan says, you don't tell every leaf of every tree because the mind of the listener makes it work. And brain research supports that as well. I'm just now working on some stuff on that. You know, these are some things that come out in the interviews and talking to you. So if you've enjoyed the Facebook Live time that we've had right now, let us know. And if you're just watching it a little later, that's fine too. But from me to you, we want to see you on debut. You are part of the process. You are an invaluable part. As I often say, if I was just telling stories to the wall, they might put me in a wall, a place with a lot of walls. But I want to be where story brings company. It's an invitation to come to a place to share together. When we tell stories, we are literally saying, I see you. You are welcome here. Let's share the world together. This is Kevin Cordi, that crazy practitioner of play. In less than 11 minutes, we're, going to have True Thomas on debut Facebook interviews. It has been so great to talk to all of you. This is Kevin Cordi. Peace out.